Hi guys, this is going to be a video on iteration. So iteration is doing something one at a time, right? So if we take a look at iteration, when I say doing something one at a time, what I mean is that we're going to have some snippet of code that's going to apply that code to one thing at a time, right? So imagine we had, for example, this list of colors, right? We had red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Let's say we wanted to ask a question, right? And we won't write any code for this. We're just going to say, all right, which colors have the letter I? And we're going to say capital I or uppercase I, right? So which colors have the letter I? A computer, what it would do, right? And a computer can't look at this list and just, immediately see it, right? It can only really see one thing at a time. And so what iteration does is it kind of breaks it up into little pieces automatically, right? So first thing we're going to look at is the very first value, red, okay? If we take a look at the letters of red, well, capital R isn't I, E isn't I, and D isn't I. So, right, what the computer would say is, no, this doesn't have the letter I, and, maybe we can move on. Then it moves on to orange, right? So we're iterating, right? Doing something one at a time. We take a look at the letters of orange, Orange. Well, those aren't I, so no, right? And these are decisions that the computer can make. It can compare the letters to I or I, and it can see if it is true or not. We go on to the next item, yellow. Yellow. Well, that's nothing, right? That's not I. Green. Green. Well, no, there's no I there. Blue. Blue. No I there, so no. Ah, now we're at indigo, right? So, right, iteration is this process of just doing something one at a time. If we take a look at indigo, well, it has an I, so we can say yes, there is an I in indigo. If we take a look at violet, well, V isn't there, but I is in there, so yes, violet has the letter I. Okay, so which colors have the letter I? Well, the answer would be indigo and violet. Okay, iteration is really good at solving a lot of different questions that you might encounter in computer science. Questions such as counting, questions such as searching, questions such as finding the maximum, and conversely, the minimum of a list, right? There's a couple of other things, but for now, these are the three kinds of problems that I want you to be familiar with when it comes to iteration. And so when we take a look at counting, searching, and all of these stuffs, well, the first basic kind of question for iteration is, well, counting, right? So, for example, let's say we wanted to ask the question, right? How many colors have the letters I or I, right? So, the way we iterate over a list is we use a for loop. Okay, so for color in colors. Okay, what this is saying is that, all right, as we move one by one through the list, right, we're going to call that first item color. We're going to call that second item color, third item color, right? And so one by one, it's going to take a look at each color in this list. Okay, so for color in colors. Okay, how many colors have the letter I or I? Well, we can ask a conditional question if, right, I is in the color, or I in the color, then we should do something, right? If we're going to count, first thing we should set up is a counter. And notice the counter has to be outside of the for loop, right? The counter, if we put it into the for loop, remember, the for loop is going to repeat code over and over. And so what it would do is it would reset the counter to 0 every time, which isn't really useful when we're counting something, right? Imagine you're counting up to 10, but every time you count up to 1, you go back to 0. You'd never reach 10, right? So it has to be outside of the for loop. So we have a counter outside of the for loop. Inside, we have some sort of conditional. And if that condition is met, then we can increment the counter up by 1 by doing counter plus equal 1. Okay, so if we do that, we print counter outside of the for loop, right? So only whatever we want in here. If we run that, we see that indeed there are 2 letters, or 2 colors, that have the letter I or I. Okay? Searching, right? So perhaps you wanted to search for the colors, right? Instead of, let's say, just counting which ones have it, maybe we want to actually print out what has the colors, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a list, right? So colors with I'm going to set that as an empty list. And as we go through, we'll fill up the list with values, right? So for color in colors, right? If I is in the color or I is in the color, then instead of, let's say, incrementing a counter up by 1, what we can do is take colors with I, and we can append the color. Remember, append is the method that we use to add colors to a list. Okay? And so if you print out colors with I, refreshed the page accidentally. So if we print out colors with I, and we run that, we get, hey, indigo and violet. Okay, those are the 2 colors with the letter I. Hey, something happened. Give me 1 moment, sorry. Clear that, go here, run, okay, now it's working. All right. So, we can also do maximum and minimum problems. Okay, so for example, let's say which color has the most letters, right? Could be a simple color or question like that. Well, what we can do is say, okay, color with most letters. We're going to set that equal to none for now, right? We don't have a color with the most letters. We haven't looked at any letters yet. So then we can iterate over the list. For color in colors, right, we're going to need something. We're going to need the length of color. Okay, and we can calculate the length of the color by using the len function. Okay, then we can do some sort of comparison, right? If the length of color, right, is greater than the color, so I said color with most letters here. So what I need as well is going to be color count, or color max letters. Okay, I'm going to set that equal to 0 for now. Okay, 0 because I know every single letter has more than 0 letters. Okay, reason why I have this is because now what I can do is as I go through the list, I can compare to see which ones have the most length. So if the length of the color, remember we're taking a look at each color, if the length of the color is greater than the color max letters, okay, right? So if we run into something that's bigger than the max that we have, then that should replace it with the length of the color. Okay, length of color. So how does that algorithm work? So if we take a look, right, again, we had red, green, or sorry, orange. Let's erase that. Go back here. Yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Okay. Right. So again, what this is doing is it's iterating through the list, right? We have this variable called length of color. Okay. And outside of the loop, we have color, max, letters. Okay. So if we start at the first value, red, we know that the length of that is going to be 1, 2, 3. Okay. Currently, at the beginning of the loop, we set that equal to 0. And so what we're doing is we're saying, okay, is the length of color greater than the color max letters? Okay, we're doing a comparison. Currently, the length of color is 3, and the color of max letters is 0. 3 greater than 0, that should return true. And so if it returns true, then what we do is we set color max letters equal to the length of the color. Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Well, this 3 is greater than 0, so that's going to replace the value. Right? Then we move on to the next item in the list, orange. Okay, well, the length of orange isn't 3 anymore. It is something else. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then we ask the question again. Is 6 greater than, so the color of max letters is now 3. Okay, well, 6 is greater than 3, so what should we do? We should take 6 and replace it. Replace color of max letters. So now it's 6. Yellow, right? Yellow has 6 letters. Is that greater than 6? No. 6 is not greater than 6. So we'll move on. If we take green, right? Green has 5 letters. Is that greater than 6? No. So we know to move on. Blue has 4 letters. Is that greater than 6? No. We should move on. Indigo, INDGIO, that has 6 letters. Is that greater than 6? No. Finally, violet, 6 greater than 6? No. Okay. So currently what our algorithm is going to do is calculate the length of the colors, and we find that it is indeed equal to 6. Okay. All right. So we know that the color with the max number of letters in the colors in this list is 6. Okay. Well, to find out what is the color with the most letters, right? So what we can do is we can set this equal, now instead of none, let's do an empty list because we know that there's more than one color with 6 letters. Let's use another for loop. For color in colors, right? If the length of the color, I should say, is equal to 6, then we should take color with most letters and we should append on the color. Okay, and then we'll print out color with most letters. If we run that, we get orange, yellow, indigo, violet. Okay, so orange, yellow, indigo, violet. These are the 4 colors with the most amount of letters. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a nice little guide on iteration. All right.